Hey now, welcome to the dirty side of the track, America's leading Formula One podcast. That's Rob. I'm Brian. I'm back, baby, and it was a heck of a British Grand Prix today. How are you, Rob?
Ah, no disrespect whatsoever to Andy and Rob, who stood in valiantly for you, but it's great to have the Sat Man back. And
It's great to be back, but I thank Andy and thank Rob so much for filling in for me when I was on my walkabout.
you were on your walkabout, and your final act of your walkabout, because literally we were recording this about half an hour after the British Grand Prix finished, and you only flew back into Chicago last night. I've not caught up with you at all about what the heck
No.
happened in Silverstone. So I'm going to hear with the listeners the same as them for the first time as to what the heck happened and how you got to meet Sir Jackie Stewart.
Oh, it was amazing.
So
And then when I saw him all over the grid and talking to people, I'm like, hey, it's my boy, Jackie. Or as I like to call
I
him.
saw him and felt like I almost know him because it's like Kevin Bacon, Degrees of Separation, right? It's I've
Yeah.
kind of met Jackie Stewart. Anyway, before we get to all of that and try and work out what we can talk about in the race, being as not a lot happened,
Mm-hmm.
um, we got a quick bit of news and social. We only have two videos in the video vault, which are extremely selfish because they're both ours. And then we'll talk about the race weekend, and then don't know what we're going to do about next week because got no
Right.
clue because it's the triple header finally comes to an end, and actually after today I need to lie down for a week anyway. So
and and at the same time, we're doing this kind of quick, so we probably won't have a lot of fantasy. We'll do that next week too. But let's jump into the news, man. Talk about it. Talk about some of the big stuff that happened this week because I have one sound for the first story that I'm ready with.
oh okay, so Haas announced that Ollie Behrman has signed until 2025. Cue sound.
Oliver! Sorry. So Haas is going
Uh,
young, right? So 2025. And
that's
the new regs start in 26, and I heard the Ollie Behrman news, and it makes sense, right? So first, let me start with he did a good job driving for Ferrari when he deputized for Carlos with his appendicitis. He has shown talent. I mean, and Ferrari is the Haas engine supplier, and they always get Ferrari Driver Academy guys through there, so it wasn't like a surprise. But a rookie in a Haas the year before new regs reeked of 2021 and Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. And I started thinking to myself, are they saving money by going young and seeing if they can develop long-term talent instead of signing a known commodity? Is there are we about to hear Komatsu come out and say, yeah, we're binning 25 because we're getting ready for the 26 reg, so we're putting all our time into that car. How long till
I,
that happens?
I don't know because we don't know who's going to be in the seat next to him yet. K-Mag hasn't been confirmed. Hulk's obviously leaving for pastures new. So right now, all we know is Behrman's in there. Now, is
Right.
Behrman going to be alongside another rookie, and it's going to be rookie central, or are they going to sign signs, or it won't be signs, but are they going to sign somebody else
And
that needs a
Ocon?
seat? Yeah, an Ocon. I mean, don't know.
Don't know.
Um, Moving on with the kind of the movements around. Andy Cowell has joined Aston Martin after over a decade with Mercedes. He's going to be their new F1 CEO. So he's going to be in charge of all things Formula One, directly reporting into Lawrence Stroll. And then he's also expected to be joined at Aston Martin by Ferrari chassis technical director Enrico Cardile. But that's not official yet. So they're kind of making some little moves there,
Yeah.
Aston Martin. You know, they got all their downgrades into the cars because they're spending all their money on bringing in new people.
Are they bringing in the Ferrari chassis technical director? Because now Ferrari's also bringing downgrades on the car. So they're like, man, we could really super cop up and just really downgrade the car after we build it in the winter.
Yeah, maybe. And then another team just out there grabbing, hey, we see what you're doing, Aston. We see your senior figures and we raise you. Alpine have gone in and signed senior engineers from Red Bull and Ferrari. Michael Broadhurst has joined Alpine as chief aerodynamicist from his previous roles at Red Bull. And he was also previously at McLaren. Head of vehicle performance, Vin Dahani, Danani, I don't know, was also recruited from Red Bull. And Jacopo Fantoni, Alpine's new deputy chief engineer, was previously at Ferrari. So kind of Alpine and Aston making not driver silly season moves, but back office, well not back office, but kind of senior staff
Yeah,
figures.
leadership.
Yeah,
Alpine, though, it's like the tide, right? Because they all left. After Otmar, it was like the outflow, and now it's the inflow of the tide. And so, I hope they're on the up and up, and obviously bringing in Flavio. I think we knew that before I left. We talked about Flavio, but it became
that's right.
official
Yeah,
when I was somewhere in Italy or something. And so I'm curious to see what Renault Alpine have up their sleeves. And I did see one Alpine A110 or whatever, A10 or whatever the heck those things are called when I was in Paris, and I got a picture of it. It's kind of grainy. We were in an Uber, and I'm like, hey, it's an Alpine. And my family's like, a what now? But anyway.
Oh man. Um, then it's not a British Grand Prix if we don't see some special liveries sprinkled around. And we really had two, and for me they were opposite sides of the coin.
Agreed.
We had Williams, which was just fantastic.
Fantastic.
Union Jack on the back, 1,005 staff members hidden in the detail of it. Absolutely sweet.
I mean, hold on before I gotta say
Okay.
the Williams in person was unbelievably good. That Union Jack on the back and the way it kind of like flowed down the car, and just seeing it in person, and the color scheme, just it was like a deeper color to it. Oh man, Rob! Like I mean, I'm serious. That was one of the highlights of my day at Silverstone was seeing that Williams. Like that is perfection.
It's gorgeous looking thing. And then Red Bull, I mean, let's put a little caveat in. It was fan designed, so I guess there's that. They didn't spend a lot of money on a marketing department to come up with it, but they just sort of splattered it with some red paint, which they seem to proudly mention was called Stallion Red, which made me think, is that supposed to be Ferrari's red? I mean, it just didn't.
Uh,
Red and a stallion just makes me think of Ferrari. So why did Red Bull just splatter random bits of red paint on their car? It just seemed weird.
Agreed. And you know, I have trouble with colors. I'm mildly colorblind. And seeing the Red Bull in person, the red came across as orange and gave me McLaren issues. I'm like, is that nope, that's a Red Bull. And so you can say what we like about the Red Bull, but when you let the fans do it, you end up with Red Bull McRedface. And that's basically what we had. Bodie McBoatface going around out there. I was not a big fan of the Red Bull. Neither was Checo, apparently, the way he drove it this weekend.
And talking about not being a fan of things, not really a fan of Brad Pitt's movie name that they've selected. Um, the much anticipated Formula One film coming out by Brad is going to be called F1.
Is it really? That's the
Yes,
name?
that's the name. And it was a lot of reaction on social media going, yeah, like if you bought a film out about football and just called it football, or you bought a tennis movie out and just called it tennis, it really doesn't it needs something else. And then other people were going, no, it's genius because F1 is just, it's so iconic and it's so well known that it's almost markets itself. And like, yeah,
No.
okay. I mean, Netflix didn't bring their show out and just call it F1. You know, they came up with a name for it. So,
I'd love to have been in the marketing conversation when they're like, what shall we name it? Well, it's about F1. We
yeah.
could just call it F1. Like, done. You know, that's not how it worked. It was like 40, 50 meetings before they settled on F1. And someone's like, we said that in the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a quick note on that. So on Apex GP. So I'm going to quickly hop in the chopper here. So in the Silverstone paddock, which we'll talk about shortly at FP1, they were filming for Apex GP, and I actually saw the entirety of like they have a whole trailer, like a hospitality trailer that people were hanging out. They have a covered area in the paddock. They're a whole team, and we knew this last year. I didn't know they were still doing this year. So I have a picture of me and my family in front of the Apex GP paddock hospitality suite, and it's just bizarre to think about the fact that this fake team for a year now has been having a real team spot at Silverstone and other places. And you wonder why it's one of the most expensive movies to ever be made. They could have actually made a whole team. They could have actually, at this point, like they could be competing against Alpine.
Yeah, you don't even think about kind of that side of it at all. Actually, that's quite bizarre. But that that wraps up the news that I was able to find. So I never had the sound effect for this, although it turns out that I did because Lee on the Discord pointed out that it was the file was sitting in one of our Discord directories all the time. But anyway, do you want to press the button to
Are
open
you
up the
looking
video
for this
vault?
file right here?
Oh, there it is.
I'm back, baby. Oh yeah, the video vault is relatively short and sweet, actually. And like Rob said,
Yeah,
a tiny bit self-serving. By the way, I listened to the
100%.
episodes. Vale's video vault was excellent with Andy. I didn't
Mm,
hear all of the Rob one, so I apologize. I haven't had time. Number one, there are two versions of this. Sap's lap around Monaco. So I got to give a little background on this. So we'll put the YouTube link to the full one, but then more importantly, the short one that Rob made for Dirty Side is much better. With music and everything. My long 5-minute one we'll talk about in a second because Paul rips into it justifiably. So it was 6:45, 6:30. I got the car. 6:45 in Monaco. On a Sunday. We were heading to Nice to get rid of the car and hop the train up to Paris shortly thereafter. I didn't have a lot of time. I did not think I was going to be doing audio when I started this process. And I was also like, I don't know what the direction would be, east, effectively, of the track. So the place I could get into the track is the tunnel. And so I'm like, yeah, all right, yeah, I got to do this quick. I'm going to hop in the tunnel, hit record. I actually brought and dragged a window-mounted thing so I could record this from home all over Europe, and then I threw it away when I was done. I'm like, I need the space in my bag. And so I drove the track. It was so cool, but I didn't have any practice. So like, I'm doing this all live for the first time. Like, wait, can I make a left? I can't make a left. It shows. I know. And I didn't think I was doing
but that's
audio.
what made it comedy gold. It was brilliant. My favorite part of it is where you say you're talking to yourself and you're just like, yeah, maybe I'll delete the audio. It's just...
I thought I was gonna. And then so I'm going around, and then I'm kind of getting into it. And there's a part where it's like one lane with again, I drove from Zurich through Lucerne to Lake Como to Venice, Venice to the Italian Riviera to Monaco to Nice. I didn't understand a single frigging thing in any of the signs. The language, the signs themselves. I'm going to rack up so many tickets. But there's a sign with like a blue round thing with a red X, which I think means don't go, but I went anyway. Paul said it's a lane. It did not seem like a lane. It was so cool, Rob. And yes, I missed a couple turns because I did not want to go the wrong way around roundabouts. So I did what I could. It was epic. And we actually, my family and I went Saturday night to Casino Square. So that part I kind of was ready for. We did some people watching.
But you still messed that up as well.
Well, no, that's where the road goes. Like, that's where they...
No. If you listen to the Paul's reaction part...
I can't go left. Like, there were barriers. If you go back and look, the only place I could go was where I went. There was no other option to go.
Because that bit looked like you were driving in a pedestrian area.
I was driving where they pointed me to go. There was a guy out there moving barriers, pointing me that way, into Casino Square proper. It was so
then
much
what we
fun.
did... So then what we did was we were like, this is just brilliant, but we wanted to kind of not have to have people sit through kind of like 6 hours of Brian doing one lap. So took Brian's video, we chopped it and stuck it back together so that it actually starts on the start-finish straight. And actually, I'm going to take a little bit of credit here that, yes, there's a little bit of a glitch where it goes into the tunnel where I had to kind of butt end the two pieces together and that scooter kind of appears out of nowhere, but it is kind of blink and you miss it. It does feel like it was filmed in that order.
Was great. I was very impressed. I showed my family, like, you did this on your phone here? I'm like, no, this is all Rob.
So we got the full length version of Sap doing almost Top Gear Grand Tour type commentary as he's driving
I didn't know I was doing it, so you got to give me a little time to get into it.
No,
the beginning is
rough. It's brilliant. No, it's not. The whole thing's brilliant. Then we got the 1 minute short, which is it's sped up 5.5 times sped up, by the way, with music. And then finally, last but not least, we shared the video with Paul. And Paul was not impressed, so wanted the file to be sent over so that he could do a Pitlane Paul reacts to Sap's lap video, and we'll put the link in there as well because Paul commenting on what Brian is doing is also hilarious. So
it was so cool, though. I gotta just say, it was so awesome to do that. I came back to return the car, and before we came down to leave, and I'm like, yeah, I just drove the track, and the valet there was like, yeah, so what? We do that every day. I'm like, all right, bye-bye. And with that, we will close the video vault.
Okay, so then we move... Yeah, race weekend. Now, before we get into unpacking what happened, I promised a couple of shout-outs. So we're quite active over on Threads. It kind of reminds me about how when Twitter first started, that right now Threads is like really friendly, nice place to hang out. And the F1 Threads community is actually really cool. I so hope it stays like that because obviously Twitter kind of went into a bit of a cesspit in the end with kind of the toxicity. But F1 Threads asked for shout outs of people that were going to be there. So these are the usernames that I know that we've been interacting with quite a lot. So we had Hells, or who goes by Hells Haha, went with Casper Alexander, and they camped out.
Nice.
They were doing so much live, sort of like on the ground reporting, like pictures of their campsite, where they were walking into. Looks like they've had an absolutely epic weekend. And hopefully we're going to convince Hells to come on the show at some point. JessieF1.png was rocking a rain poncho, the emergency poncho, Brian, just like you had in Canada. But
I bought 4 of them for us, so I'll get to that.
And then Amanda Haywood, she stayed dry. She was in the stadium, the grandstand by the looks of things, and she posted an absolute epic view of how close she was for Antonelli on the podium up there. So shout
Nice.
out to all the F1 Threads guys. Like I say, I hope that community can carry on going because it's been great. So Friday arrives. I know that the SAP is going to be there.
Right.
I make contact with SAP, and I think what happened is really, really, really sketchy cell signal made it
Yes.
seem like you were absolutely going to make it by the skin of your teeth to get there because you were telling me you were still on the road, and the road that I know, the A413, I think, and you were probably still going to have to get there, park, and try to get in. And as far as I was aware, there were 5 minutes before FP1 started. But
So that
then I saw another message come through where you said, made it, I'm in my seats. I'm like, how the hell did you get there, park, line up, give your ticket in, and get to your seat in 5 minutes? That's impossible.
So for some reason, and I don't know if it's because I was roaming or what, but my whole family. First, Verizon was screwed the whole trip. Like their roaming provider went down, so there were days we had no cell service because they couldn't figure out what was going on. My wife, fine. Me and my kids, nothing. But we get to Silverstone, and there's so many people, and I had to like turn my cell signal on and off to get anything to go, and I didn't know that at the time. I was literally sitting still on the A4987642, and so I'm sitting there waiting. And I wouldn't have sent you a note if I was moving, obviously, but we were stopped, so I sent you a note, hey, we're still waiting to get in. We did make it in time, so that message was delayed. The word delayed was delayed. We got in with 1 minute to spare, and so we got out of the car. I'm like, we got to hustle. I thought FP1 was at noon. It was 12:30. And so we are running, and we get to gate 3 over by Cops, or Woodcote, excuse me, and so we're at like Woodcote C. And I'm like, we're going to have to hustle through the fan zone, cut all the way across, get over to the Hamilton Straight. We had Hamilton Straight A. So I don't know where Amanda was. Amanda, we may have been close. I had my family in tow, or I would have done a better job, like, coordinating with people to say hello. But with my 2 daughters and my wife, like, trying to keep all this on the up and up and, like, in the right place at the right time took everything of mine. So I apologize for not catching people. But, yes, we made it to Hamilton Straight A just before the start-finish line. Just to the, like, before the start finish line of the Hilton. We were right next to it. We were sort of at the high end of the seats, so close to the Hilton. Seats were fantastic, and we were covered. And I'm like, this is going to be tremendous. There was even little cushions on the seats. I'm like, look at us. I'm like, these are, like, Rob and I were sitting on metal exposed to lightning bolts in Canada. I'm like, we have come a long way. And one of my daughters actually closed her eyes a little and took a nap for a little bit, but they both enjoyed it enough. My wife got into it. We had a blast for FP1. Paul asks me where I am, and I told him, hey, I just would love to say hi. Like, I saw him a month or 2 ago in the States for dinner and some drinks here in Chicago, and I'm like, I just want to say hi, man. I don't want to bother you during a work day. And I can't get service to work. Like, I can't get messages to Rob. I'm like, no service, can't send, give me a minute. So Paul goes, there's a bridge into the Hilton. Can you get there? I'm like, totally. It's like, I can get to the outside of it. It's right there. And he goes, I can't get through. It's just for Paddock Club. I'm like, ah. So he goes, can you get to this other bridge by the hangar straight? And I look, I'm like, oh, dear Jesus, that's far. And so I'm like, yes, but you have to give us time. We'll start walking. So we do. And I just assume we're saying hi, but I'm like, guys, like, take it in. We'll look around. Rob, it was so cool. The way we went through some of the fan zones. We saw the Vale chicane. I got pictures for you. Yes. They'll be coming soon. Yes. The Vale stands. I took pictures of that. There's a whole musical thing going, Made in Vale. It was so awesome. There was a DJ spinning tunes. My daughter's like, this sucks. I'm like, yeah, this is fun. We're like, exploring. Andy, I got to give a couple shouts out here. I'll get to Paul in a second. Andy Tales, friend of the show, fantasy guru, gave me like 9 different emails of advice. Andy, thank you. They were great, especially one about using the porta potties in the right fashion. There's the women's, the men's stalls, and then the men's urinals. And so women can use the men's stalls if you need to, because the women's line is astronomically long. I'll just tell you that. Like, we walked by it, I'm like, dear God. And so we go over to the middle of the Hamilton Straight. It took us about, 30 minutes to get there. It's probably a couple miles almost that we went. And Paul comes out and brings us in to the paddock, effectively into the infield first. We couldn't even cross without him. We get to the paddock. He gives them some passes. He was actually managing another group as well, and I won't say who it was because it's none of my business. But he got us in, the 4 of us, just briefly. He's like, this is going to be the world's fastest tour. I'm like, I don't know if I can tell you how cool this is already. I just wanted to say hi and shake your hand and say, good to see you, buddy. And so he gets us in, and we go up and down the paddock. And like I already mentioned, Apex GP has its own hospitality unit, just like every other team, which is still bizarre to me a year after they were doing this stuff. We're looking for Brad Pitt. My wife's like, is Brad Pitt around? Where's Brad Pitt? Where's Brad Pitt? I'm like, calm down, honey. I'm right here. And so then we kept walking around. I saw, as you obviously saw, Jackie Stewart. And I took a picture of him. And Paul goes, you could say hi to him. He's the nicest man in the history of Formula One. I said, no, I don't want to bother him. He goes, he wouldn't care. He's with his wife, Helen. He's looked like maybe a family or other people with him. I walked over, said, Mr. Stewart, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you, sir. He shook my hand. I got it. My daughter took a picture. I said, that's my daughter. He said, it's great to meet you. He had no idea who it was. And I walked away, and I'm like, this might be the coolest thing. And my family's like, I don't know if I've ever seen you this excited, Dad. I'm like, just hang on. We're about to see tires.
You addressed him as Mr. Stewart,
Sir
not Sir.
Stewart?
You didn't call him Sir.
I'm Brian from America. Mister is about as what that's the appropriate. I didn't. Your Highness, royalty. Do I bow, curtsy? What was I supposed to do, Rob? I don't know.
Well, all I was going to say is like all of this stuff was making me so happy. I was so happy this happened for you. The only little tiny tinge on this that I still can't get over, and it still disappoints me to my very core, is that you chose to pack only one of your Dirty Side t-shirts and you wore it on a beach in Monaco where, having spent a weekend with you, I know how easily you start sweating once the sun comes out. So you sweat into your Dirty Side t-shirt in Monaco where literally probably nobody saw it. And it never gets and sees the light of day again. You don't even wash it in a sink in your hotel so that you can rock it around Silverstone. The Dirty Side t-shirt could have been on display in the paddock in Silverstone.
I know.
And you screwed the pooch.
I
but
did.
Other than that, I'm so happy for you.
Thanks. Paul showed us the garage. It was amazing, even more so than last time because Joe's car was apart. So I got to see the engine. It was unbelievable. Paul, thank you so very much for that. I already thanked Andy for the ideas. Richard at my hotel, the Bankside in London, he's amazing. Richard, I hope you're listening, buddy. We were talking for a while. He saw Max and Lewis come together at Cops in 21. He had live video of his own video he took of it. He's a big fan of F1. Richard's amazing. And he hooked us up with breakfast, my man. And then like we left because Paul had other things to do, so it was relatively brief. We leave, and we grabbed some crepes right there. There was like a truck. There was all these people trying to get pictures and autographs of celebrities and drivers, and they just saw us coming out of the paddock. I'm like, I'm here for pictures, autographs. No takers.
If you'd have been wearing your T-shirt, maybe you would have.
I know. I screwed it up. And then there was like a food bus and a drink bus, and we got on the food bus, and we watched from the roof of the food bus on the infield right at the pit exit. It was epically good. And you could see the cars. So for FP2, that's where we sat. FP1 was great at the Hamilton Straight A. We did not have time to get back to our seats before FP2. So we watched from the roof of this bus. Oh, man. Rob, watching the cars come down the Hamilton Straight and hitting that first corner, but not lifting and turning, you can see. I've never seen this. You can see the speed they're going with as they go around this corner. And the sound is just... like, it was mesmerizing. I have all these videos of it. I'll send you a couple of those. But it was epic, and then we actually bolted, like, the second, about 10 minutes actually early before FP2 finished, because we wanted to try to get back. And we got out in time. Like, it was not terrible. Started raining, and then London hosed us. We got to London in, like, an hour 45, and then took us another hour 45 to get from the outskirts of London to our hotel. But it was brilliant. I loved it. Paul, thank you again, my man. That was so much fun.
Oh, so that is the boy Saps update from practice. Let's quickly, because we've got a lot to unpack in the rest of the weekend. So just quickly, FP1 we had it was Rookie Central, where we had Red Bull had Isaac Hadjar, Alpine had Jack Doohan, Ollie Behrman for Haas, surprise, and Franco Colapinto for Williams. They all went and took their seats in FP1.
I also saw Jack in the paddock, by the way, and kind of gave him a high five. And by
Did you actually
high five?
him?
I nodded my head, and he nodded his head back. That was the extent of it.
Okay, so it was kind of like a virtual.
Yeah, Laurent Mekies too, though. I saw Laurent come by. I did one of these, and then Laurent did one of those back to me. I'm like, hey, I know that guy.
Wow.
I know, right? I rubbed elbows with a lot of famous people.
Yeah, if only been you wearing your T-shirt. So then Norris was quick. FP3 was a bit wet, so we really had nothing to go on in terms of quali predictions or fantasy teams. If you really wanted to use FP3 to inform anything, you were screwed because it was just wet. And then quali rolled round, and we kind of had a bit of a damp a damp day, but oh my gosh, this is where things start going. Some early foreshadowing of maybe some selections for King of Pits and the Pits maybe later. But anyway, Q1 we lost. Bottas edged out right at the very end by the last run by Danny Rick, I think, nudged him down into 10th, into, sorry, 16th, 15th, whatever the number is. K-Mag,
16.
Ocon, Gasman, and Checo. Checo. Oh, I just, yeah.
There's a lot of rumors that his seat is somehow in jeopardy again, even though he has a brand new contract.
Well, so on that, the rumors that are flying around is that yes, he has a new contract, but because they kind of were worried about this, on one hand, they wanted to announce that they've got the seat kind of locked down. Maybe I don't know why you need to do that. You're Red Bull, you could probably hire anyone, but apparently there's a whole bunch of performance clauses in there that if he doesn't meet certain milestones over the remainder, he could get replaced this season still because there's a lot of performance clauses in there they could activate. I have no solid source to base that on other than the internet. So
Which
make
is
of that
always
what you will.
spot on, baby.
It's always spot on, but that would actually make a hell of a lot of sense. They've given him a 1+1, and that 1+1 is riddled with get out of jail cards. I mean, it would make a lot of sense. Q2 rolled around. Charles decided he didn't want to play any further part in it. Logan was out, but out qualifies Checo again. Yuki, Zhou, and Danny Rick. And then Q3.
Wait,
Sorry,
hold
go
on
on.
a second. What has happened to Charles since Monaco? Like, I've seen a lot of these jokes and stories that he saved up all of his good luck, used it all in Monaco, and now he has none for the rest of his life.
He made a deal with the devil, didn't he?
He
Sell
did.
your soul
It's
to
like
me,
every
and you can
time
have the Monaco Grand Prix, but you'll never win ever again.
You can never win. You'll never even be close to the top. I feel like every race I'm waiting for this radio message. No! I don't know what to expect over there. It's a big old mess.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And then, oh my gosh, I did not see this coming. And my fantasy lineup definitely did not see this coming because the British Grand Prix, home of George, Lewis, and Lando, and those are the three in that order at the end of quali. George on pole, Lewis in second,
Wow.
Lando on third, British lockout. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. And we haven't even got to the race yet. Max in fourth, Oscar in fifth. The Hulk putting it up there ahead of in the customer Ferrari, whatever you want to call it, taking it to the actual team, beat Carlos. Stroll, Albon, and Alonso rounded it out, but wowzers! That's all I'm going to say, Brian. Wowzers!
The Hulk thing is crazy. So I watched Austria on the plane yesterday. I downloaded it. I didn't get a chance to watch the race. I watched it somewhere over Iceland, and as I'm watching it, I'm like, Hulkenberg and Magnussen were fascinating to watch. And then watching the Alpine boys battle each other as well, was teammate on teammate, was fascinating to watch. And obviously what ended up happening, and I'm not going to recap last week's
You're not, because me and Rob already did that. So
but
come on,
I have to
be this
download
week.
the "chow" sound effect from Pierre. That I heard that yesterday somewhere. I'm like, he goes "chow." I'm like, Pierre, you're the man.
Right, come on, stay focused. British Grand Prix.
But Hulk,
You weren't
good
here
job,
for
sixth.
Austria.
Hulk is doing crazy things. He's making Audi look very excited.
Yeah, really. So then, well, conflicting reports. So the race is about to start. I get a picture from my buddy Ian that was at the race, and he sent me a picture of the Porsches or the whatever it is, the GT cars going out before, and it was wet. I mean, it was like wet. And then I read somewhere that everybody was going to start the race on Inters. So by the time I got down to the Iron Horse bar to watch the race and saw them all lining up and pretty much all on mediums, I was like, yeah, that track does look ridiculously dry. So it obviously dried really quickly between the support race and the race starting, because everybody decides to start on mediums pretty much. I think a couple of softs and maybe a hard sprinkled around. What did Checo? I missed this. I mean, Checo was a nightmare anyway on his qualifying. Why did he do a pit lane start?
He replaced his power unit.
Okay. Well, that worked. Uh,
What do you mean? You mean finishing 17th in one of the best cars on the track with a new power unit's not good?
So we had the formation lap, and the gas man, I think, he didn't even start, did he? He trundled back in, and
he went around the formation.
He did the formation lap, and then
into
that was
the
it.
pits.
And he had a pit lane start anyway, but they called it, and he didn't even make his pit lane start. What I did notice that the way the graphic got messed up, and I don't know if it's because he triggered something, but after the race started, even though he'd retired, Gasly was shown with the fastest lap for a while. But I'm
Was
not
he
quite
really?
sure how that worked. Yeah. So,
I didn't catch that. That was
but he
pretty
hadn't
nice.
actually started the race. He didn't leave the pit, so I'm not quite sure how he got that. But there we go. Right, so the start starts as it does, and the two Mercs kind of pull away, and Lando does what Lando's been doing recently and didn't really nail it from the get go, and was just put himself under pressure immediately from Max, and Max is too wily a competitor to take up to let that opportunity slip through. I think it was by turn four.
It was.
He did him. He just swooped through on the inside, and that's an area that Lando's got to get sorted out because I
He's
think
had
that's
a
like
lot
three
of problems
races
in
in
the
a row.
starts. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's Oh, and we had Albon and Alonso come together. There was a replay shown from the car behind. It might have been Joe's, and how Albon actually kept that thing on the road after it kind of like double fishtailed across the after the contact. I
I
mean,
think he
that was
bounced off Logie. I think he actually ended up hitting Logan and it bounced him back into the middle a little. So
yeah,
who
maybe
says Logan Sargent isn't a team player?
we'll come back to him later.
We
Um,
will?
yeah, we will. We will. There's a sort of mini shout out to be given to him, I
Oh,
think.
well, I'll have to go find
Um,
the sound effect.
so yeah, lap six, it kind of seemed to be sort of settling in a little bit that the Mercs had pulled out ahead of Max. He wasn't sitting in their DRS. Lando was hanging out in Max's DRS and he was kind of towing Oscar along and they were kind of dropping signs. So those five were sort of just holding station because we've now got a running countdown on the screen telling us when the rain is coming. So it's like, do you burn through these tires and get as far away as you can, knowing that you're going to jump in and have to replace them soon anyway? Or is the weather forecast wrong and you've got to look after these? It felt like they were all caught in a little bit of not quite sure which direction to go at this point with the rain looming.
And we could see the teams, especially those couple on softs, trying to figure out what to do. When the softs were done, do you box for more slicks and then risk coming back in for inters or something? Or for the teams that were on mediums, can you wait until it's time to go to an inter as opposed to boxing? And Karoon's neighbor in Brackley, which I now know where that is, because if you take the M40 out of London and then you get off at A47244 and then you cut over, you'll go through Brackley's exits. And by the way, can I just say the Oxford services on the M40 are fantastic? They have 5 Starbucks. I've never seen anything like it in my life. After not having Starbucks forever, my wife was in heaven.
Oh, well, there you go. See, the British Grand Prix delivers on more things than we even knew about. But so then, yeah, Hulk was actually staying with Charles as well. They were both going after Stroll, which, by the way, we probably won't mention Stroll or Alonso again. Maybe we will, maybe one or two, because those two locked themselves firmly into witness protection for the rest of the race.
Even though they scored points. They were both
Yes,
7th and 8th. Kudos to Aston. Never saw them.
never saw them on TV. There was an overtake that was done, which I think we're going to come up to soon, and that was literally it. I don't
I
think we heard
forgot
their
they were a
names.
team.
So then we had Charles. Here it is. Charles gets Stroll at Stowe. That's hard to say. And right after that, as I'm typing that, Lando gets Max, and I'm now losing my mind because Lando has easily taken him, and not
He's
only
flying.
that, he's flying, and Piastri is as well. He's right up Max's trumpet, and 2 laps later, he gets him. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! This is a Mercedes McLaren shootout. It was amazing.
And I loved it because then it starts, the drizzle starts. Not enough for inters, but the drizzle. And apparently, and we don't know the reason why, Martin thinks it may be the suppleness of the suspension. But something about the McLarens, they felt they had control. They kept going. They had the speed the Mercs didn't quite have. And we watched as, first, Lewis was pushing George. Lewis gets into the lead. Then Lando comes through. Then Oscar comes through. And it's just chaos for like 6
Yeah,
laps. I'm sitting at the TV just screaming at the thing like, this is unbelievable.
the conditions went through two very distinct phases very, very quickly. It went greasy enough that Rainmaster Lewis had a much better feel for the track than George. And like you say, Lewis got past George, and that was that. And then it just went a little bit further into, like you say, that sweet spot where the McLarens just seemed to say, yes, this, if we had to write down on a piece of paper our perfect conditions, it's this right now. And they just turned into
55
rocket
degrees
ships.
Fahrenheit, slight drizzle towards the end of the stint on mediums, and our car is a rocket ship.
And then yeah, everyone's sliding off and going wide, but somehow avoiding crashing. I was I'm still can't believe that this race didn't have a yellow flag or a crash because it
Well,
was so greasy, so slippery. Um, Lando gets Lewis, Oscar gets George, and then gets Lewis. So now we've got by lap 20, all of a sudden we've got the whole switcheroo in place, and we've got the papaya leading the Silver Arrows, where 4 laps earlier it looked like the Mercedes were disappearing off into the distance. And by the way, we're not even talking about Max at the moment.
we're not. And at this point, people start sacrificing their pawns. And so Checo, who's at the back of in the middle of nowhere and made no impression, the team's like, well, we should learn something about. So let's send him out on inters. And then Ferrari, being Ferrari, decided that's a good idea. We should send Charles out on inters too. And after like, I don't know, about a lap, we get something effectively like this.
Wait, what are these tires?
Sorry, it's a mistake.
That was a mistake of epic proportions. Rob wrote they looked like bricks. They did. Not only did they look like bricks, they looked like square bricks, or rectangular ones, as you might see more often. Everyone on inters was going backwards. It wasn't wet enough. It just was not wet enough, and it kept drying. And the inter people were like, and the commentary said this, it's like kids. They just put their thumbs in their ears and go, nah, I'm not changing it. Like, dude, you're losing 5 seconds a lap.
And then this is the bit where maybe I don't know how much of the race this would have changed, but Sainz at this point was an absolute rocket ship and just got inside Max's DRS, where at that exact moment that he got down to 0.98 seconds or whatever it was, we saw the thing come up on the top of the screen, DRS disabled. And that was it. Sainz never really had another sniff at getting Max. I think if that DRS had stayed for another couple of laps, I think Sainz would have got him, and then who
Max
knows
actually
what might have
mentioned
happened,
that in the cooldown room, how Carlos was really fast at that point of the race.
yeah. And they are basically all the team radios are coming in and saying, this is the first set of rain over. If you can see this out, we don't need to go to Inter. So just please try to keep it on the track. And then Crofty just came up with classic Bon Jovi commentary where he said, oh, right now it's slippery when wet and they're living on a prayer for some grip. It was chef's kiss to Crofty. If you're a Bon Jovi fan, that was an epic piece of
John
commentary.
Bon Jovi. If we could, before we go to when the Inters come on at 27, just real fast, on lap 25, something I want to highlight. Checo and Charles get lapped. We're not even halfway into the race. Not even halfway. And they got lapped. Lapped. Lapped.
Worse than that, Brian. They got lapped on what I think is the 5th longest circuit on the calendar. So this isn't like they got lapped in Austria, where like you can lap someone after about lap 3 because it's like got 4 corners and you're done. This is Silverstone. This is at the other end of the length. And yeah, 25 laps in and they're getting lapped.
By their
my
teammates
Yes.
as well. Not just the leader, not just a rocket ship of a car. No, their teammate. Like the same car drove by the same car. Meep, meep, and they went right by.
So then we got what had been reported by, I think it was, whether it was neighbors, grandmothers, just people they've paid to
Ruben's
phone in that
grandma
live in
from Brazil.
Yeah, people that live in the local area and just phone in the rain reports. The rain that had been threatened, the second band came in. And this is where McLaren's day starts to unravel a little bit.
You know I'm hard on McLaren from the notes we're about to talk about, but keep going.
Yeah, so no, but this one is definitely all on McLaren. This one they completely messed up here because even the commentary team called it. George started falling back a little bit from Lewis. He didn't hold up the driver behind him, but he dropped back a little bit to try to give a 2.8 to 3 second window so that they could double stack. Commentary team said Oscar's going to do the same thing now. He didn't. Now, whether that's Oscar's immaturity, whether that's the team engineers not coming on and telling him to do it, but he did not back off at all. They probably should have still double stacked and just given Oscar a longer pit stop, but they decided maybe it was okay to go round one more time because, hey, how much time could you lose?
Well, you could fall to 6th, was the answer. You could end up being 2nd and then come out in a distant 6th. When Oscar came around on that extra out lap, or I guess that would be an extra in lap, and so as he came around on that extra lap, Lando was behind him already. In the camera shot, and Oscar hadn't pitted. I'm like, oh no, baby, oh no, this is not good. And so I'm like, to me, I always feel like the timing of the pit stops is more often than not the team, unless they're waved off. I never heard Oscar waving them off. And Zach even said, we'll have to look at our strategy calls after the race on the pit side, pit wall.
Yeah,
that was a
such
big
a
mistake.
Bad call. Yeah,
you'd rather sacrifice 2 seconds, have him back up to a double stack, than have him sacrifice 18 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. It was just Just crazy. And then all of a sudden, George is starting to eat into Max's time. We're watching tenths just shave away, shave away, shave away. And then my son, who's a big Mercedes fan, is oh, he did get down to 1.6 and now it's back up to 2.5. As George had a moment, and then we got the team radio. George, box, retire the car. It's like, oh, you're joking. And it was apparently a water issue. What I did find weird was, I guess maybe in hindsight, Lewis is probably going to see maybe on the TV screens or whatever that George is out. But to come on to Lewis and go, hey, yeah, your teammate's retired with a broken water pump. Good luck. It was like, what's Lewis supposed to do with that information? It was like,
here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to lift up the hood of the car. I'm going to hold on to the water pump attachments, the hoses, with my fingers as I drive. Well, like, what is he supposed to do?
yeah. Yeah, it was nuts, and we wrote in the notes here. It's kind of, we were approaching the 40th lap. It was like, whatever it was, 37, something like that. And it's like, still got no clue who's going to win this race or what tires they're going to finish on, which was an amazing piece of foreshadowing because the way things went. But yeah, so people are still going around on inters. When is the switchover gonna come? It turned out it was 38, 39. Now this is where you and I think, have got a difference of opinion.
Yes. But I think there are two parts, so keep going.
Okay, so the first part. Maybe McLaren fell for Red Bull's team radio that happened the lap before, which was Max saying, I'll let you know when it's time to switch across from inters, because that made it sound like he was going to eke this out a little bit longer. And then what he actually did was box within about 10 seconds of making that radio call. But I think he boxed after Lando had gone past. As the lead driver in that situation where you're on the, are we at the switchover point yet? I think the guy who's leading is in the worst possible position there, because the ones behind you can decide to do the opposite, right? You want to keep your track position.
Yeah.
So they decided to go for one more. Now, if they hadn't screwed the pit stop, I don't know if Lando would have lost the lead here, because Lando comes in, he's on absolutely worn out inters, overshoots his pit box and ends up having a 4.5 second pit stop. Comes out and he's 2 seconds behind Lewis. He's lost the lead. He's 2 seconds behind. So if that pit stop had been a regular 2 to 2.4 seconder, he comes out right in front of Lewis and retains it. So I don't know that McLaren messed that call up too much, because I think as the lead car, it's really difficult to, you box and give up track position, the other guys go for it. Yeah, okay, if you end up doing it, everyone thinks you're a genius. If you end up losing the track position, they all say, what the hell did you give up track position for? So I think Lewis and Max were going to just do the opposite of whatever Lando did at that point.
So for me, I get what you're saying. But you're not riding the inters to the end. There's clearly a slick crossover.
Yes.
And everybody else seemed to realize when it was. And Lando's engineer or their strategist said, oh, we can push it one more lap, which did not work. Like, they were going to do it at some point. Do it at the optimal time, which clearly every other team figured out. And so, to me, again, they left someone out one lap too long. It was Oscar at first, cost him the lead. It was Lando the second round of pit stops, cost him the lead.
So hang on, he doesn't do.
You can run over Rob Reed and Andy, but you can't run over me, buddy. And so the thing I would say is, my struggle is they put him on softs as well. Now, hold on. I know you're going to say he may have asked for softs. That's fine and good. But he was slower than Lewis on the softs. He wouldn't have passed him anyway. Even if he came out right around him, Lewis probably would have eaten him. And Max may have gotten them both. So Lando had to have pitted at the right time. He also went on to the wrong tire. They were bragging about having the extra mediums. And everyone was talking about the fact they have these mediums. And Lando's like, or the team is like, nah, we're going to try to run softs for 12 laps, which fried on his car fast. And he admitted that.
The team weren't. And this is the bit where me and you were talking about it with Jeff earlier, which is, I'm going to slightly pull back on it all being Lando's fault, because listening to the team message again, I think the way that they relayed the information to Lando, because this is all blink of an eye stuff. This isn't like he's got 10 minutes to think about it.
Right.
So he's coming round and they say to him, you've got two choices. We can either put softs or mediums. Now, I think if he'd have left it at that, I wonder if Lando would have picked mediums. But the way they dressed it up was, you can pick softs if you want to cover Lewis. You can pick mediums if you want to cover Max.
Right.
And he said, I'm going to cover Lewis for the win. So they've almost dressed it up as softs if you want to challenge for the win, mediums if you want to keep Max behind you. And that is actually probably the wrong way of giving him that information because
But you know what you also don't hear? You also don't hear a call as he's coming in, hey, do you want Frank on the right rear jack or do you want Steve on the right rear jack? Let the driver drive and let the pit wall and the strategist make the decisions.
No, this is where I don't agree with you.
They have all the data. Then fire the strategist.
No, they don't. No. Right, and this is where I disagree with you. Strategists talking about whether it's a one-stop or a two-stop and on what lap to come in and all the way strategy plays out, 100% agree. When you're coming in on a swap over, just back to slick some inters, and it's that weird damp thing, I don't care what information you've got on the side in the pit lane. They mentioned it a million times today about how Lewis just seems to have this feel for that conditions way better than George when it gets
He's won
like this.
104 times.
Exactly, and I bet the data doesn't really tell
Lando's
much difference between...
one.
No, wait. The only person that knows how those tyres feel when they press the brake pedal or when they accelerate out of a corner is the driver. I'm absolutely 100% fine with them giving the call to the driver coming in of saying, you've got 2 tyres you can go for. What's going to work better for you? How do you feel the track right now?
Okay.
Lando basically admitted it at the end, and he knows he picked the wrong tyre.
And we saw this with Ferrari, where they got into this debate where they really got annoyed with the way Charles and his engineer were doing, and they had a lot of
question.
And they finally asked Charles his opinion all the time. I think you need to be more firm and say we believe the medium's the right tire, and we're gonna something.
No,
to that
agree.
extent.
They could address it. I think the way they communicated was really, really bad because I think as a racer, if you hear 2 bits of information at high speed and you've got to pit now and you've literally got to give them the answer now because they've got to get the right tires out, the way they dressed it up was wrong. I think they just sort of said, softs or mediums, which would you prefer? Because by bolting on softs to go after Lewis, mediums to stay ahead of Max, that's wrong. Actually.
I would even go further than that. Softs or mediums, we think mediums unless you really strongly think softs.
Yeah. But
Something
I still think the driver has got the ultimate
I still say he was
call.
a lap too late. A lap too late.
No, you see, and that's where I will debate you again, is because had he not overshot the box, had he had a 2-second pit stop, not a 4.5, he retains the lead. And then why is that a lap too late?
If he boxes at the first lap, he has a 2-second lead instead of coming out at the exact same time as Lewis. I mean, we'll disagree. I'd love to know what everyone listening thinks. I think McLaren's strategy team kind of messed up the race. Rob seems to think.
Oh no, they did. No, 100%. They ballsed up the first one with a double stack. I don't think they messed up the call because I think it was in crossover world and the drivers behind were going to do the opposite of whatever Lando did. I just think they just panicked, both sides. Both Lando should have picked the mediums. And like you say, I think they could have given him a bit more steering that the mediums were going to be faster because it was just so cruel to watch Lando start falling behind while Piastri is absolutely a rocket ship on the brand new mediums that Lando could have had. So we're watching this go now. We're in 9 laps left. Max is on the hards. Lewis and Lando are on the softs. And I turned to Reese, my son, and said, Max is going to win this. Max is gonna. They've got to nurse these softs now to the end. Max can just send it for 9 laps. Oh my gosh! You should have seen Reese pacing. You should have seen Reese pacing because he's such a Mercedes fan, and he's just pacing around the bar. He keeps looking up and going 6 laps, 4.2 seconds, and he's just gibbering for 6 laps. I've never seen him like this, and I was kind of getting like it as well. And when Max got Lando
easily.
Easily by the time when he got him, I was like, well, that's it now. You've got
4
whatever
laps.
It was, 5 laps, 4 laps to catch
4 laps,
3.5 seconds.
Yeah.
But he just didn't, nothing.
Right.
It actually never became in jeopardy at that point.
He brought it down to 2, and then I think Lewis kind of dialed back a little on the last lap, and it was maybe a second and a half or something like that. If I look at the timing, it was 1.46, but Lewis was slowing down on that last lap.
Oh, it was epic. It was absolutely epic when Lewis came around that final corner. It's like, wow. I really thought can't remember was we in our first season or our second season? I don't know. We've talked about on this pod that when Lewis went past the 300 race thing, no one's ever won a race after hitting 300
It's your
races.
favorite stat. I thought about you this whole race.
And now someone has, and his name is Lewis Hamilton. And he also went and, 9 times? So he's gone and outright got the most number of wins at any single circuit in Formula One history.
And hold on, before we go any further, we have a quick stat, which you... Sapstats British Grand Prix Vales Special Edition. I only have one stat. No one's ever won after going over 300 races, and Lewis Hamilton just did, and we've talked about it 100 times on this podcast, and Rob must be so very excited to have that record broken. I was thinking of a few years ago. You remember the British Grand Prix a few years ago when Crofty got excited?
Through goes Hamilton!
And he was like, that's basically what I was expecting as he came around Club Corner onto the Hamilton Straight. Has anyone ever won a race on their own straight? I mean, that's awesome as well.
That is awesome. And then just the wow. I mean, like the outpouring of emotion where it's a really weird thing to say that despite the fact you can't see anyone's face at all because they're locked away inside a helmet with the visor down, you blatantly knew he was sobbing like a baby in there when he pulled in, because you could just, the body language, it was just, and then his dad came over and then he took the flag over to the crowd. It was just amazing. Just my nerves are absolutely shredded because, not that you care, but yesterday England got taken to penalties by Switzerland, and penalty shootouts are just the worst for nerves as it is. So I was already spent from yesterday, and then Lewis comes and holds off Max. I got nothing left. That's it. I'm done. I'm gonna go lie down for the rest of the day after we've recorded.
So do you think Lewis walked over to Toto and they were embracing and talking, and do you think he said, "Hey, Charles finished 14th. You think I could stick around one more season?"
They've so got rid of the wrong driver there, haven't they? Because science shows what the pace was in that car.
I don't know about
fastest lap.
I don't know if they got rid of the wrong driver per se. I just think Charles did make a deal with the devil. And
well, yeah, okay. So in lieu of the fact that Charles made a deal with the devil to win Monaco and now will never be any good ever again, they've got rid of the wrong driver.
Well, also the downgrades they brought to Canada when neither car could get out of Q2, which was a disaster.
True.
By the way, can I just say this? Canada was a banger. Silverstone, banger. Austria was a slow burn, but then real hot at the end. 3 of the last 4 or 5 races have been tremendous. And one other stat, no music needed. We've had 6 different winners in 12 races. We're halfway through the season, and we've had 6 out of 12 with different winners. That's fantastic. I
did not see this season coming after last year,
and especially with the RB20 and those big side pod shoulder bolster things, and Max came out and dominated the first race or two, and I'm like, oh god, here we go again. And then immediately people brought upgrades except for Ferrari and Aston Martin and their downgrades, but other than them, everyone else has been fun to watch. Haas is poking around. RB looked good for a while, then they changed the whole car. Now and then you're trying to figure out who's what. Just awesome. It's a great season.
No, it's amazing. So then just to round out what we had there, we had Oscar came in 4th, Sainz came in 5th. He had enough of a window to take a free pit stop ahead of the Hulk so he could go and bolt on some fresh softs and get fastest lap. Hulk bringing it home.
Wow.
That's amazing. Then witness protection finally opened up and Stroll and Alonso appeared to get some points. Albon put a move on Yuki at the end to get 9th and Yuki got 10th. And then my little shout out, because we do beat him up a lot. Have you got the sound effect ready?
I do. Tell me when you want.
Okay, so Logan, the sergeant, came in 11th and actually not miles behind Yuki. Now, for someone that we keep beating up for pootling around in 19th, 20th, or DNFing, I think that's one of his. I think that's his best result all season. Unfortunately, at a time where it's probably not going to save him.
It may not save him for this season either.
No, not for this season. Yeah, exactly. I think there's rumours that he's going to go to Indy and someone else is going to come in and take his Williams seat for the rest of the year. So we shall see.
So one thing I did miss very much were the pits, King of the Pits and the pits. And shall we go to the King of the Pits and the pits, Rob?
Yes, let's do it. You got the music racked up?
I do. I don't remember whose turn it is to go first, but...
Hey, you're the king of the pits. Yeah.
All right.
Well, you've been away for a while, so I'm going to say that you can have the honor of going first. And I'm probably going to copy you and agree with you.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton Incorporated. Sir Lewis Hamilton, actually, I guess, also.
Has to be.
Anybody else you would? I mean, he was clearly the driver of the day, king of the pits. Good on him.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a stretch. 100% giving it to Lewis. If I wasn't giving it to Lewis, if it hadn't been a man called Lewis Hamilton that had won in such a fashion, I've got to be honest, Max, after looking like he was complete toast down in 6th and riding a tractor around the place, just the way the team managed the strategy and the way that he made the best of the hand that he was dealt to rescue that and come home in second, I thought was a cracking drive from him, to be honest.
He made a comment in the cooldown room, and it was a good one. Like, he didn't expect to finish where he finished. He thought he was 4th through 6th. And when he was watching the Mercedes going off the road when the rain started, both in a row, George, then Lewis off the road, Lando came through, took a spot, Oscar went off the road. Max is like, just keep it on the road, keep my head about me, and drive the best I can. And he did. We've seen him with the best car not get the right attention and kudos. Here we see him without the best car doing an amazing drive. And he turned those hard tires, he warmed them up, brought him into the temperature. He was great. So I would agree with you. Max is a close second. Now,
yeah, a few more laps and he would have probably caught Lewis. And then a little final one, if it's almost like a podium of King of the Pits, I think it would be remiss of us not to give the Hulk a shout out as well, because that's a cracking drive from him
he's been
as well.
2 races in a row in a Haas.
Yeah.
Do
you think he's phoning Gene and saying, "Can I stay?"
Not at all, because he is looking to Audi, not Sauber in 25. But with that, let's turn to the pits. A little competition for the pits this week.
You're the pits.
So do you want to go first? I can't remember. Do we do both in the same order?
No, you go. Yeah, both in the same order. And you've been away for a few weeks.
Well, this is easy. I'm going. I've been gone, but nothing has changed. Checo is the pits for me, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I gotta give honorable mention to Charles, because unless something was broken on his car somehow the whole day, how in the world does he finish 14th? Yes, I know he had inters on at the wrong time for too long. I saw that. He finished, Charles Leclerc, finished behind Danny Rick, Kevin Magnussen, who was also in witness protection from the back of the grid, and Logan Sargent. And we always joke about Logan out-qualifying Checo. Logan just beat Charles in a race.
And Checo.
And, well, Checo is, for me, the pits. How about you?
Yeah. I think one of the few times when we've got like 100% agreement, because how is he driving that Red Bull, like you say, with a brand new power unit and essentially making no dent whatsoever? Yes, okay, so he went to Inters, but he only went to Inters at the wrong time because, like you said, it was a sacrificial lamb, because I think he did one thing where he caught the back of the pack up and took, like, Zhou or someone like that. He thought, okay, here we go. We're going to get a Perez slicing through the field. And that was it. He did that one overtake and then settled in for the afternoon and thought, I wonder what's on TV tonight.
The only person who finished behind Checo was Zhou. And Zhou started on softs, was in early for pit stops. I think Zhou pitted 704 times. Every time I looked up, Zhou Guan Yu, pit stop, pit stop, pit stop, pit stop. So, yeah, Checo. I honestly, I don't know how he's in the seat next year. I know, again, I don't. You and I, neither one of us understand the contract. It just doesn't make sense. If they haven't called Carlos Sainz and said, "Don't make an announcement just yet, buddy," then they're not doing it right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just awful. Yeah. There's no point beating him to death on that. It's just a really, really, really bad weekend. Just never looked good, didn't qualify well, and then couldn't convert poor qualifying into a better race result. Just bad, which is why we have a You're the Pits award, because he firmly deserved it.
Definitely.
And that wraps up what was an absolutely epic weekend from our point of view. We just haven't heard from one person who hopefully will have sent it in by the time I edit it in at this point, because right now we're recording and we haven't had a Pitlane Paul review, but he'll come good, and we're going to insert it. You're going to play the music, and then I'll insert it.
Oh, that's a good idea. I should definitely have had the music ready for Pitlane Paul.
I did such a long lead-in for you as well.
Oh, I forgot we were going to insert the music at this point, and I cannot find it because I've been away so long. So, Mr. Pitts, here it is, right here. Oops. So I will say this as we insert the comments here from Paul. Thank you, Paul. I might be on the Friday recording. We'll just have to see.
Oh, so, okay, now you see we're doing real life. I've already asked him how many recordings was he going to do this week, because last week I only expected one. So me and Rob Reed left one pause, and then he sent me 3 files over Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Not only did he do that, as he even said in last week's review, he managed to go on for 6.5 minutes on his Sunday review. So when I put all three of them together, I was like, I cannot have 10 minutes, nearly 12 minutes of Pitlane Paul in a row here. So I have to slice it up and try to drop it in other places.
Well, you just play it all once. We've told everybody.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how long he goes on for again today.
It was a pretty big nothing burger of him and I walking around the paddock.
Okay, well, if you get this far and you've already heard Paul a couple of times, you know that I actually chopped it up. If you haven't heard Paul today right now, then you know you're about to hear all three of them now. So enjoy.
Cheers. Hey now, so quick Friday review after FP1 for no other reason than I have a special guest with me here in the paddock in Silverstone. Here he is.
Yo, hey now, what's up, man?
So, yeah, FP1 was really boring, so let's see what FP2 does. What do you think?
It was Friday, but it's great seeing you, man.
Yeah, it's great seeing you. It's the only highlight we've got. Off we go. Sunday, Silverstone. So, let me briefly talk to you about Friday. So, yeah, looked after Sap, got him in. Great to see him and the family, lovely people. I'm not sure if they were bored or not bored. I think, yeah, getting into the garages and seeing what was around the back of here, I think that sort of blew them away a little bit. So that was good. Less said about my scooter trip to get there. I had a bit of a nightmare, but it did keep me fit at least. The race hasn't actually finished. I'm watching currently Lewis on lap 51 of 52. Max is 2.7 seconds back. I mean, I can remember the puncture here a few years ago, so nothing's ever finalised. But how amazing is it going to be if Lewis can get this through? So I'm going to stop short of the end because it's going to be really good. And the reaction here, Silverstone special. Yeah, it's been cold, it's been wet, it's been really bad weather, it's been horrible. But with one lap to go, this is the reason why these old circuits need to stay on the calendar, by the way. Quick race review. Sorry for George. Car issue. Some strange tyre decisions were coming in on Inters. No one really makes a mistake as such, apart from Joe. I thought his decision to come in for drives was weird. But look, it's made for a great race again. Rain makes things happen. Rain makes things good. So, yay to rain. What else we got further down? Lando, yeah, McLaren, this is a missed opportunity, I think, for those, really. I don't think soft tyres were really that great at the end. Ferrari, yeah, I mean, it's a gamble with Leclerc. It hasn't worked off. I know everyone, and you guys, probably going to kill them for it, but look, that happens. Carlos, he's 36 seconds off the lead. It's a long way back for Ferrari, who, we know are better. Excellent for Hulkenberg, that's brilliant. Both Aston Martins in the points. A Williams, Visa Cash App. Lewis has got the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight before he comes to the last special, amazing few corners. I'm going to turn the TV up. I'm going to let you guys finish. This has been an amazing weekend. I love Silverstone.
Well, Paul, you are a legend. As we said, it's just the nicest, most generous man in the world, and that's all
Seriously,
I'm going to say on that.
He is just kudos above and beyond. Paul, I appreciate you. It was great seeing you again, and really appreciate it. My family loved it. My kids were really wowed by the whole thing. My wife as well. So, thank you, buddy. That was amazing. Next time you're in Chicago or in the States, dinner.
Well,
again on me.
And we haven't got this 100% firmed up yet. But we may be doing an episode with him in October. Whether or not we can do all three of us together, we don't know yet. But
it might be hard for me, but I'll see what I can do.
I know. It'll be easy for me because it's Boston. So maybe there'll be a live episode coming the week before COTA. But anyway, we shall see. We don't have, for the first time in what feels like a million years, we don't have a race to preview this week. It will be, it'll be the Hungaroring week after next, which... as anyone who's listened to us before knows, this is the Monaco, but in the forest, isn't it?
Not our favorite.
Not our favourite, but maybe it can serve up a banger. Maybe, just maybe, with everything looking like it's a little bit closer together now, it will actually deal up a decent race for us. So we will try and find something to do next week. Being pushed by the guys on the Discord to do a Vale's Tales of your new friend, Sir Jackie Stewart, being as we haven't covered him in the past before. So yeah, maybe that's our episode next week. We'll work it out between the two of us. Why don't you, in your jet lag state, sign us off for the week, Brian?
Happy to. It's great to be back, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful weekend watching the Silverstone events. It was a great weekend of racing. I loved it. I don't think we can ask for more in F1 at this point. Rob, it's great to be back. Can't wait to talk again with everyone next week. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Be well, be safe.